So those are the works that I simply wanted to kind of remind you of in relation to this exhibition, the Ultra-Baroque. And now I'm moving on to show you, without too much comment initially, the work from this exhibition entitled Hinterlands. And I have to say that, you know, I'm not a huge fan of over-design, but this the designer for the exhibition really sort of threw herself into this. And in a way, I'm also very much interested in the kind of relationship between kitsch and so-called high art or contemporary art. And so I think that this exhibition has certainly strong kind of leanings in the direction of kitsch. The other thing I should say is that, and I'll just show you a few quick images of the installation. I should say that these are all artists who are in mid-career in Canada, fairly well established, and not artists that I would have said are associated with a kind of mainstream of Canadian practice, whatever that is. But at the same time, there's something about all of their work that seemed to come together, and clearly one of the things that I'm trying to do, as hopefully I will show, is take an interest in the fact that there are artists who are thinking about another kind of representation of identity in relation to landscape and nationhood in Canada. So these installation shots show in the foreground there's a kind of performance costume which has a bear head on it, and there's rubber boots there and that sort of thing. And this is for a performance that Colette Urban did that was shown as a video. And in the foreground there's a kind of a big kind of a stick that's also got a camouflage bag that it's to be held in or contained in. And then in the background there, in the background there are works by the duo Fastworms, and I'll show you details of those. These are paintings by Sky Glabush, and they're quite large. They're 7 by 10 feet, and they are. I'll show close-ups of them and just make mention of what we're seeing. Sorry, my PowerPoint is okay. And this is in the other room of the gallery. We had photographs by Diana Thornycroft, whose work I'll say a fair amount about, and also a video installation of the video based on that Colette Urban did, that we had the artifacts in the other room of the gallery for. And so there were 2 rooms of the gallery, the one with Fastworms, the artifacts from Urban, and the paintings, and then the second room of the gallery, a series of photographs, and also this video. And then these are the works by Fastworms, and there were actually two bodies of work, and I'm not going to say too much in an analytical way at this point about the work, because I'm going to be talking about it a little more theoretically as we go along. But specifically what we're seeing is a selection of photographs that these artists, they moved from Toronto to Creemore, which is a small town 2 hours north of Toronto. And they began a project where they were documenting local houses and cars and basically local environments, and essentially with an attitude of trying to sort of describe a kind of plot or some sort of an underlying dark kind of narrative. They basically presented all these photographs, and we're actually writing on the photographs just with a magic marker. These kind of, some of them are kind of epithets, some of them, you have the title there, Juice Monkey. So this is kind of language that seems to both kind of inside and outside the culture that they're representing here. And these are the paintings by Glabush, and they're actually vernacular, obviously sort of modernist houses in London, Ontario, painted in a way that both invokes somebody like David Milne, who was an early 20th century landscape painter of a kind of modernist vein, and also somebody like Peter Doig, who works with a kind of highly colored palette and a strong kind of intersection between a kind of abstract approach to painting and then a great deal of narrative description. So there's something both conventional about these paintings, and obviously the palette, which doesn't get represented terribly well here, is very charged. And then these works by Thornycroft, and these are very sort of kitsch works in a sense. The series is called Group of 7 Awkward Moments, and basically she's using versions of group of 7 paintings as backdrops, and then in the foreground with all these toys and accoutrements, she's describing these troubling, unfortunate, surprising incidents. And so there's and there's lots of kind of Canadian art folk history that's being integrated here. This one doesn't work, or this one works well. It just doesn't show very well here because the background is so dark. But just on the little piece of styrofoam in the foreground, there's a man and with a woman on a little dog sled, although there's no dogs in there, clearly floating out to sea. And finally, this is Colette Urban's kind of costume, actually. Has a bear head, and she's wearing it backwards, so she actually is charging through the bush in this costume. I need to say that Colette Urban was my colleague at the University of Western Ontario and retired early, as they say, and now lives in Newfoundland, where she has kind of retreated to the bush. And I mean, I think that's a kind of under kind of current in all this work, but in a kind of ironic way. I mean, she's a very sophisticated artist who still has quite a substantial career, but at the same time, she's really trying to make it in the bush, and so to speak. Okay. And then the two artists that I'm showing you, the First Nations artists, and I will need to apologize that I don't have a lot of images of their works, but they're Rebecca Belmore and Kent Monkman. And Rebecca Belmore represented Canada at the Venice Biennial 2005 with a major installation, this work entitled Fountain. And this is a production still. I'll describe the work a little later on, but Rebecca Belmore, I think, is a tremendously interesting artist. She is from Northern Ontario. She is a so-called full-blood First Nations artist. At the same time, I think her work has managed to operate both within a framework and discourse of post-colonialism and also more broadly in relation to contemporary art. And Kent Monkman, and this piece is actually called, the overarching title is called The Triumph of Mischief. And he's a very tall, sort of beautiful man who wears, and I don't have a lot of images of this work, but he wears a long wig. He has a very small kind of loincloth that's very beaded. And I'll show you more of this work as we go along.
Damn fine high heels too.
Yes, and he wears those high heels really well. And typically there's a horse in the background. And some of the images I've seen, which I wasn't able to get a hold of, are of him on horseback with the high heels. Okay. So in order to move into an analysis of some of the Canadian work I'm presenting with respect to the Neo-Baroque and regarding the exhibition Ultra-Baroque specifically, I want to look at 5 concepts or constellations that stem from the discourse around the Latin American exhibition. In discussing these, I'll be recalling some of the argumentation found in the catalogue and linking it with some of the specific analysis of the Canadian work. As you'll see, all of the artists' work could potentially be addressed with regard to any of these rubrics, but for the sake of economy, I'm linking the 5 areas with no more than 2 artists' works each.